Hi. Where does one get help if you're trying to recover from the org? The Watchtower says, "Where else will you go?" It is the often repeated question to those who are questioning the Watchtower and thinking about leaving. And unfortunately, many ex-witnesses believe the Watchtower, who stated that there was no other place to go. I was asked that question from my family when I was leaving the organization. The answer that I gave was the one that Peter gave in John chapter 6, verse 68, the very text where the witnesses think the statement, "Where else will you go?" is. This is what the text says, John 6, verse 67 and 68. Then Jesus said to the 12, "Do you also want to go away?" But Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have words of eternal life." So notice, Peter doesn't say, "Where shall we go?" He says, "To whom shall we go to?" And then he identifies Jesus as the one who has words of eternal life. So I remember reading this to my father during one of my last meetings with him and saying that, as hokey as it might sound, that's what I was going to do. I was going to follow Jesus, go to Jesus, and trust him. I didn't understand how that worked, and I didn't probably explain it very well to my father, but I was just putting my faith in what Peter testifies. And it did work. And Jesus didn't leave me alone, isolated from others. He sent Christians my way. And gradually I got over my trust issues, and I got over measuring my beliefs through the Watchtower's teaching and doctrines. Here are some suggestions that Dr. Bergman makes as to a help to people, where to get help if you're leaving the Watchtower. So in his book, Jehovah's Witnesses and the Problem of Mental Illness, he says this: "Probably the most important step is for those who leave to involve themselves in an ex-witnesses self-help group. Only ex-witnesses can fully understand and deal with the problems that leaving witnesses cause. Support is especially important at this time. And because of their own experiences, ex-witnesses are usually in the best position to help. Many of these groups openly express a high level of concern, and they are often fully willing to spend a great deal of time with the new ex-witnesses, discussing mutual concerns, even at times calling on them to see if they are all right. This is especially important because suicide thoughts are not at all unusual at this time. Thus the ex-witness should not be frightened if they occur, but helped to realize that what he or she is going through has been experienced by most devout ex-witnesses when they lose their central life support, their religion. Most survive, and many are better persons for it. It is also very helpful for the recovering witness to spend time helping other witnesses, because helping others often aids oneself a great deal to recover. So I can testify to that advice being good advice. At the time of our disfellowshipping, there was less supports than are now available. But you can still find groups that meet in person in different communities. If you ask around and look it up on internet in your area, if there's an ex-witness group. When we first left, and among the first Christians we met, there was a group of Christians who had, upon their own initiative, decided to create support groups for ex-Mormons and for ex-witnesses. So we attended the ex-witness one. And there I met other ex-witnesses, and I heard their stories. And that did really help me. It helped me because, first of all, I'm finding out that there are other ex-witnesses. At the time, I really felt so alone, and I felt I was the only one who saw these things or knew these things or who had left. So it was helpful to meet others who had left, and I think misery loves company is also a truthful saying, because you're hearing other people's difficulties, other people's experience, and you're seeing where they match up with yours. Oftentimes, though, what I found was they had harder stories, sadder stories than mine, and that was a help, because it got me away from thinking about only my own circumstances, and it moved me to want to help others who had left the witnesses. And that's why we do this work. Let's see. Now you can find support groups all over the world and interconnecting with people from different parts of the world through Zoom. So there are all kinds of Zoom support groups, Zoom Bible studies that are attended by ex-witnesses who are trying to get their spiritual feet back, trying to figure things out. And there is a rich variety of Christian communities available to witnesses. But that usually is a little tough on witnesses to feel comfortable there and to go there. So next time we'll talk a little more about church life and what to expect there. I'm going to link to a video that we did called What JW.org is Not Telling You About Death. And this is part 3, because we're covering the information about sayings of everlasting life, the text from John 6. And so the question is, do JWs have sayings of everlasting life? The second one is a Ray Franz video, his final thoughts from the second book that he wrote, In Search of Christian Freedom. How do exJWs hear the Spirit?